唔好意思要大家久等。I'm sorry for having to keep you waiting, but now let's put our hands together for the director, Mr. Leos Carax. Thank you.
So I feel a little bit nervous, like a teenager meeting his idol for the first time. So I've been an admirer of your films for a very long time, Leos.
I'm a teenager too.
So I hope it's okay for me to just begin our conversation with a personal memory, because I was in my 20s when I saw my first Leos Carax film in the cinema, and this was Pola X in 1999. And it was such a powerful film that I saw it 5 times in the cinema. And every time that Pierre follows Isabelle into the forest, I would just feel these chills down my spine. So that was my introduction to the world of Leos Carax. And now flash forward to 2025, and I'm in my 40s now, and life is not so intense when you're older. But when I saw your film, your new film, and the scene comes up where your daughter plays the piano and you have the storm that's superimposed on the screen, all these feelings that I had when I was in my 20s came back to me. And I sort of had the feeling that I was watching a movie for the very first time. And it made me feel really thankful that in this very crazy world that we live in today, I can still hide in the cinema and watch a new movie by Leos Carax. So first of all, thank you very much for still making great movies that remind us what cinema is all about. And also, thank you very much for seeing us here in Hong Kong again since Holy Motors.
Well, thank you. Pola X, maybe you're the only person who saw Pola X. Maybe you saw it 5 times, and maybe we sold 5 tickets. It was my worst box office, I guess you'd call it. And so my daughter in this little film is the daughter of the actress of Pola X. So there's a cycle there.
So the first questions that I wanted to ask you about has to do with the past. And I feel that in your movies, you very consciously engage with the past or reinvent the past to find a way towards the future. So for instance, you connect the earliest form of cinema, like the stop motion photography by Maybridge and Mari, to things like motion capture and CGI. And there's that wonderful moment in the new film where Saturn, it's spinning, and you have the Maybridge footage together with the motion capture girl from Holy Motors. So I was wondering if these echoes from the past are very important to you. I mean, another one is when you have the story about Marilyn Monroe, and somehow it reminds me of the oval portrait. So Edgar Allan Poe and maybe Godard. So are these echoes from the past very important to you?
Well, you know, cinema, I always feel cinema is a land, is a country or an island. And it's not that old. It's, you know, it's old, but it's not that old. It's more recent than any other art form. And it's a special art because it needed at least to exist. It needed an invention, camera, projector. And these machines had motors inside them. They don't anymore, of course, because we're in other age, digital computers and stuff. So yeah, I started liking, thinking this, I would like this to be my land, my country, my island. When I came to Paris, I was 17. And I first discovered mostly silent films. So that's where I came from. And I'm always interested, I hope it shows in this little film, about how we move, how we go on, like how did we go from 20th century, where I was born, to this century, and what did we gain, what did we lose, etc.
Actually, related to that, I feel that even beyond the past, you often take us through your films back to the origins, and you often give us this sense of what it was like in the beginning. And I feel that sometimes we forget why we make movies, but you're always reminding us of the initial desire that made us invent cinema in the first place, the original impulse. So I was wondering sort of what attracts you to these very beginnings when our needs are very raw and very primitive.
I think I love beginnings. I love beginnings. That's, to me, the most exciting thing, and it's hard to go on living beginnings, especially as you get older. But cinema is made of that. You know, cinema is also, I was talking about the specificity of the camera, but it's also an art that has to be reinvented every generation, because we don't react the same. I mean, a child today doesn't react the same in front of a screen. Sorry. That's probably my daughter. Okay. I see these terrible things. Yeah, so how to reinvent cinema, or how to reinvent yourself, how to reinvent love, or how to this. I think we all need this kind of power of reinvention, and it's sometimes you don't find it. You don't find it in yourself or in others, so it's a big battle.
Was there a kind of origin moment in your relationship to cinema, like in the beginning, like a moment you remember from your very first encounter with cinema?
I think it was it was not in a theater. It was on television, because when I was maybe 13 years old, I was allowed to take my parents' TV for one night because there was a boxing fight in America, a championship between Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, and Joe Frazier, I think he was called. And I wanted to watch it, and it was live, so it was at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I kept the TV the next day, and I saw a film, and I'm not sure which film. But for the first time, I thought, a film is not only actors and a story, there's got to be someone behind. There has to be. I think it was a Bresson film, and I thought, okay, there is someone behind the film. You don't see him or her, but there were no women directors almost at that time, only men. So that's when I started to, I guess, to think I'd like to be that man behind the screen.
Was it Les Dames de Bois de Boulogne?
I think, yeah.
One of the things I really like about your films is that you often acknowledge your inspirations in your end credits. And sometimes you would cite certain French or American writers, writers from the 19th century, perhaps. And these inspirations also remind me of the rich film history that you engage with. And there's so many wonderful examples of great films in It's Not Me by King Vidor, Murnau, Hitchcock, that are very kind of central canonical films. And I was wondering how you approach these inspirations, whether they're writers or filmmakers. Do you conduct any research when you work on a project where you look at certain films, or is it more like a way of life where you're just always watching stuff and reading stuff?
Well, for sure, I've been I've been reading my whole life. I'm insomniac, so I have a book for the day and a book for the night, and I read all the time. Cinema is different because I stopped seeing films after my second feature, I think, slowly, because I had too many, I guess, films already in my head. But it can be, yeah, it can be, I mean, it can be, anything from a painting to a poem, a line of a poem to, of course, a film, a novel. I steal a lot. I always stole a lot, and I encourage people to steal a lot. The painters, the masters, they would go to the museum and copy paintings. That's how they learn. And that's why I never understood why there was cinema schools, because I don't understand what you can learn. You see a film and you know how to make a film. There hasn't been any filmmaker that hasn't seen a film, except maybe the first one. But, filmmakers, first of all, a spectator, and then he becomes, hopefully, a filmmaker. So he's impressed, and then he has to impress the film. We all. So sometimes when I'm conscious, sometimes I'm not conscious. When I am conscious, I like to put the names, because I feel maybe there's a kid someplace in China or in Africa or in India that will see that name and this said, who is, I want Edgar Allan Poe or someone I want to read. So, yeah.
And I love that in It's Not Me, it seems when you're recalling memories from your own life, they are mixed with these memories from the movies. So when you look at the father from The Crowd or the boy in Germany Year Zero, it seems like their experiences also become part of your own experiences, right?
Yeah, it's the, when you discover cinema, basically you discover what it is to be an orphan. You're alone in the dark, but you're not alone because there's a presence, a huge presence, but you're like an orphan in the dark. So I have no memories of my childhood, almost. But through films, I can say I was that a bit. I was this little boy or this little girl a little bit, or we share something. Then I have a feeling of what I was as a kid, let's say.
So I wanted to ask you, when you started as a filmmaker, what it was like to come sort of after the 1960s and sort of after the French New Wave, because it seems that you were sort of following in the footsteps of the French New Wave, so you wrote some film criticism and you took Serge Dany's classes and you were watching movies at the Cinematheque, and I was wondering what it was like to sort of find your way after a period that was very intense artistically and politically, like the 1960s.
Well, there was a sense that already that cinema was not what it was not anymore what it just had been in this, the power of cinema had to be. People were still going to the movie theaters, but less than in the 50s and the 60s. I'm talking about the 70s when I started, 70s, 80s I started. So, yeah, it felt, I was talking about this island of cinema, so there's a beautiful cemetery there with lots of filmmakers that were already dead when I started making films, like the ones we mentioned, the pioneers of cinema. But there were a few people alive who were making films, and that I discovered a little later. That was, for me, it was mostly Godard and Bresson, but there were, others in America, here, or in Russia, etc. So that I was very grateful that there were people still alive doing what I loved. So I think my two first films, my two first features, were like paying a debt of gratitude towards all these people who had created cinema before me.
Did you still feel some of the energy remaining from the 1960s in Paris at the time, or was it intimidating at all? Or?
Sorry, I didn't.
Did you still feel any of the energy remaining from the 1960s in Paris at the time, or was it intimidating at all to be following in their footsteps? Or?
No, I mean, I didn't. When I came to Paris, I didn't know anybody in the city. I mean, so my life basically was walking, mostly along the river and across the bridges, because I like water, I like bridges. And yeah, mostly, and watching films and trying to imagine what I could, if I could one day make a film. Yeah.
An aspect of your movies that I feel you inherited from the French New Wave is how intensely personal and in some ways autobiographical your films are. And there seems to be a tradition from Godard to filmmakers like Jean Eustache and Philippe Garrel, where sort of personal feelings and maybe relationships between the filmmaker and people that he knew are mythologized. And I feel that it's not me and also Annette. They seem to me very haunted films and kind of haunted by the presence of the departed mother, sort of when you also introduce Kylie Minogue's song from Holy Motors at the end of the film. And I was wondering, is it very important for something that's deeply personal to give your films or your work a kind of a soul?
I don't think you can make films or make anything actually without being haunted. Yeah, probably you can, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't know. Yeah, being haunted is very natural. You cannot not be haunted, I think. That's what makes us. That's, whatever haunts you, whether it's a person or something, So I guess I'm not a storyteller, I would have liked maybe to be, there aren't many great storytellers in cinema. Hitchcock is one, but there aren't many who reinvented the way we tell stories or we watch stories, etc. I can't do that. It's a gift that I don't have. So I guess all I can do is have these images that haunt me and that kind of chaos of these images and try to organize this chaos into films.
Because when I saw It's Not Me, and there's the my favorite scene, the piano sequence, and then you have the storm too, and it took me a moment to kind of register why it was so powerful for me, and I guess it was because I was linking it to the storm and Annette too, and also the way that the mother appears in the film. In It's Not Me, there's even when she's the mother who's reading bedtime stories, she has the wet hair and the wet clothes, and it kind of links the film to Annette in a very kind of almost subconscious way, and some of this imagery just makes the film very, very haunting to me.
I never thought of that. I thought of fathers. I thought of, there's a chapter about bad fathers, mauvais père, bad fathers, yeah. because I'm a father, I'm not a mother, obviously, but I think there are only bad fathers and bad mothers. It's impossible to be a good parent. But that's where we all come from. So that may be part of what haunts us. We don't come directly from God or from Adam or Eve, or we come from parents, very much alive parents, who couldn't do their job well because nobody can. Yeah,
I didn't realize until recently I was watching The Crowd again after watching It's Not Me, and that the father in the crowd is also kind of a bad father in a way.
He's the most, I think, the best. It's the best film about that, about what it is to be haunted and what it is to be a parent. I think nothing has been better than The Crowd by Vidor.
I hope some of those in the audience who haven't seen The Crowd will take a look at it. It's like so many classic films, you can find it on YouTube these days. When I think of music and the French New Wave, I think of the jukebox. Whereas with you, I think of the Walkman. And in Boy Meets Girl, Alex has a very unique Walkman. Or can I confirm with you that that's just a fictitious creation, the way he uses the headphones with the tape recorder? Or?
Yeah, it's probably. Yeah.
Because I showed it to my students and they asked me if that's how people listened to music back then.
No.
And actually, the way that the music functions in your films, it reminds me a lot of mixtapes, or maybe that you're almost like a bit like a DJ. And when we see the sequence on the bridge with the fireworks in Les Amants du Pont Neuf, it's like almost like a great DJ sampling sequence of different tracks of whether it's the Blue Danube or Fairuz's music, the Lebanese singer, and I was wondering, at what stage of making a movie do you think about the music? Or it's so iconic the way you use the Kodayi's music, the cello music, and David Bowie's music.
I live with music, it's the one thing I would have liked, would have been to have music. I don't have it. I can, listen to music, but I can't make it. So I guess that through cinema, when things work, when you feel that, that you can, and it's not all often, but I feel at times like a musician, like a composer, let's say. The same way if you listen to some composer you like, I don't know, Mahler or Shostakovich or any Beethoven, you have to wonder how music came to them, I think they must have heard it, They have to, it's not just paper and writing down or trying on the piano. They hear something or they're haunted, let's say, by something, and they transpose it. So that's, to me, is a miracle. But sometimes it happens in the process of making a film, and I feel it. Of course, you feel it in different ways. Editing is close to composing, but the way, I think that's the way a film starts. Is like, I was talking about these images and this chaos, and then you try to organize this chaos by writing a score with these images and these feelings.
So does the music come before the shooting, or does it sometimes come after you've seen the images already? Or it's case by case?
No, usually it's there at the same time as these feelings and these images come, music comes with it. except of course if you have to create an original music, which I did very little and very late. I was too afraid. My first 3 films, I think, don't have any original music. It's only, it's Bowie and it's Shostakovich. I mean, I was too afraid. But yeah, usually it comes with the project, with the imagining the film. Yeah.
And actually, I think that's one of the great things about your new film as well is it also has a wonderful soundtrack. And I have to say, when I was preparing for the talk, the music that you used by Sparks without using hands, or for the spinning part, "Oh, What a Lovely City," it just that song was in my mind for the whole week. that part that you were using.
Yeah, well, the Sparks who I worked with on this film a few years ago, Annette, I would listen to them when I was, probably, I discovered them a little after Bowie. Bowie, I was probably 10, and Sparks, I was 12 or something. And especially this song, Without Using Hands. And there's a joy in Sparks that's pretty rare, I find. And music can be very joyful, of course. There's a lot of, pop and dancing music, blah, blah, blah. But Sparks have a special way of expressing joy that suits me.
What was it like working with Scott Walker on Polar X, sir?
It was the first time I worked with a composer, with a musician. So I was very afraid of, but it was very easy. It's like with actors, I don't know how to direct actors, so I have to find actors who don't ask for any direction, who, we don't need to talk. And this was the same with Scott Walker. At first I was very worried, I thought he's going to give me music, I'm not going to like it. I can't rewrite it, I can't say, change that note, or I can say, but it doesn't happen that way. It's like, a filmmaker doesn't know how to do anything. I can't film myself. I can't hold a camera. I can't record sound. I can't design the sets, the costumes. I can't act. You don't need any gifts to be a filmmaker. That's what's great. And especially, so you have to meet the people, who can film, who can record the sound, who can compose music. And hopefully, if you're lucky, and I was lucky a few times, you meet people, and you don't really need to talk to them. It's that, we all have that in our lives, I guess, that we meet people, or maybe we're haunted by the same things, or we look at it, we can take a drink and talk about stuff, but I never knew how to talk about work, about music, or about light, or about, yeah.
Did you ever want to work with David Bowie? Or?
I never thought of, as a musician, as a composer, I had a project as an actor with Bowie and Iggy Pop in the 90s, I guess. But it didn't happen.
Did you meet him though, or?
I met him, but I didn't know him. I knew more Iggy Pop. There was supposed to be it was like a portrait of Dorian Gray story. Two Iggy Pop and David Bowie were the same in a way, but the dark Iggy Pop and the light Bowie. And then I wanted him to play the composer in Annette. There's a conductor, but he was too sick. Yeah.
So when I watch your films, I'm really drawn to the darkness of the night, and also this world of shadows that's very mysterious and seductive, and I feel you're always taking us into the woods or forest, like with the monologue in Polar X, and there's the great storm in Annette that also rages during the piano playing in It's Not Me. And it reminds me of Henry's song in Annette, Sympathy for the Abyss, and this idea that you really kind of lose yourself and you lose it, in a kind of relationship where it's very irrational, it's very destructive, but somehow it's also, there's something very seductive about it. And I was wondering sort of what draws you to this darkness, this kind of darkness that's very voluptuous at the same time. It's very alluring.
Well, I was talking about stealing. I stole that from Edgar Poe. Sympathy for the Abyss is a story I read when I was maybe 16 years old. It's a man who's hanging to a cliff. And he knows he's very high and hanging to this cliff, and he knows that if he looks down, he's going to fall. But at the same time, he can't help looking down, And that was, to me, was a revelation that someone 100 years before had that idea, this image, and I thought, that's why I'm so thankful when these people from the past who created all that stuff that we still have access to. It's amazing that you can open a book that someone wrote, a century before you were born, and you feel, okay, I have a brother, I have someone who, why the sympathy for the abyss? I don't know. It just, when I read it, it's been with me since. So then I decided to write a song about it at the end of Annette.
What's the name of the book that it's from?
I forgot the whole title, but it's Captain Gordon Pym.
It reminds me also of the image in Polar X when the lovers are almost drowning in the river of blood. Or is that also an image that's inspired by literature? Or
I don't remember, but I think the words "river of blood" come from a Herman Melville story. Maybe not the one I adapted with Polar X, but maybe another one. I don't know. I read that, River of Blood. And
somehow it's funny, in my imagination, we're talking under these bright lights, but in my imagination, maybe the ideal place to talk with you would be if we were in pajamas in a bedroom at night. Or do you usually find yourself working mostly at night, or?
I wouldn't call it work. As I said, I don't sleep much, so I've got to do something. So sometimes, things come. I don't know.
So you have that funny image of your on the bed, and writing on the.
Oh yeah, I wish it was that. I always wish that you would fall asleep and just write your book or your poem or your symphony or your film or whatever, and then wake up and say, how great I am. But it doesn't happen like that.
I think watching your films make me realize that the word emotion contains within it the word motion. And I love those moments in your work where emotion becomes motion. And there's a sort of sudden, eruption of energy that's really intense, like, of course, the famous sequence of Denis Lavant running to Modern Love. And I'm also amazed at how much action there is in your movies. Action involving motorcycles or water skiing and, even guns or explosions. And I was wondering what draws you to this kinetic aspect of movies where sometimes you use different camera speeds like fast motion or slow motion, and are you a fan of action movies or?
I guess I would consider myself an action movie director, but action, motion and emotion, that's cinema. That's how it was created. How to turn, motion into emotion. And I've always liked, as I was saying, a filmmaker can't do anything. I'm not a dancer. I'm not an acrobat, but I like to film actors or people trying to fly away, trying to run and to leave gravity and to escape. I think when I was young, my 3 first films were all about that, young people who through love think they can escape, they can escape gravity, but you can't, of course, but you can try.
How do you get them to have that kind of intensity when you're shooting those action sequences? Like when I say action, like even like say in Lovers on the Bridge, when she hears the cello in the subway and then she's running and he's chasing after her and it feels so intense, like it's the motion is like an expression of the emotion and I wonder how you get them to convey that kind of physical intensity when.
I think my only job is to choose them, to find actors. I hate casting. It's never seemed natural to me to do casting. And I think it's the only job in the world where you can tell someone, I don't want you because you're too tall or you're too small or you're too black or you're too white or you're not allowed to do that usually. In cinema, that's what. That's casting. So that's why I haven't filmed many people. I filmed the same people again and again, often same actor or actress. So if the choice is right, there's you can't go wrong.
Is it challenging sometimes to shoot those types of action scenes? I mean, I was watching Polar X again, and sometimes even like something like a fist fight. Like there's a scene where I think Sharunesh Batash, grabs this guy and kind of like just pushes him down, and you feel like the violence. It's so powerful. Or
no, I always considered that. Because some of my shootings have been difficult for the actors or long. I used to, less now, to shoot very long time. I used to retake or remake everything because I used to watch the dailies, what we shot the day before, and I would want to remake it. And so I thought that with all that work and sometimes, especially on Lovers on the Bridge, it was very difficult for the actors. And it was 3 years. I feel we all need, action or let's say a dance scene or something they can rehearse. They can think, okay, this is hard, but I have to dance, and in a month I have to dance. I have to jump from a plane with a parachute, or I have to fight, or I have to run, or whatever. So it keeps them sane.
because even in that, there's a lot of the motorcycle riding where it's very dark, and there's that long take of sort of Adam Driver just on the motorcycle at night, and it looks quite dangerous when you watch it, I guess. I don't know if it's more like an illusion, but.
Well, motorcycles are dangerous. That's why they're great, I've always had a motorcycle. Yeah.
There's this very strong attraction to outsiders in your movies, or sort of outcasts or rejects who sort of exist on the margins of society, whether it's a person who is homeless or someone who's from another country, or it could be a beast or a monster like Monsieur Merde. And I was wondering where this interest in subjects who are on the fringes comes from, or is it from a love of the poet Maudit, or sort of your interest in 19th century poetry, or?
No, I think it's a way of seeing the world. No, if you feel foreign, I think a lot of people do. Yeah, that's how you experience life. It's interesting, but it's hard. When I came to Paris, and I was walking, and I didn't know the people. The only kind of interaction there was when I would go by a homeless person, and he would look at me. Because people in the streets, even at that time, there were no iPhones or no cell phones, but people, are busy or they don't look. And today it's amazingly worse. I mean, you can go in the streets and not have one cross eyes with anybody because they're more in a hurry than ever, or I don't know where, or on their cell phone. So yes, it's I guess you make films, I guess, to feel less foreign, less alone, or less. You need someone to talk to. That's why you make films. Yeah.
I love also how in Pola X, for instance, the character Pierre in the beginning, he sort of lives in such a sheltered environment, and the clothes he wears are so neat, and it's such a kind of almost aristocratic family, and then he meets this girl, and then you see him just kind of in a way being really attracted by the other, almost in a way, or this very foreign world of there's also the gypsy woman and the child, and maybe some parts of Paris that he didn't know before.
Yeah, that's the one time I adapted a book. I didn't imagine the film from nothing. I never do, but this time it was a book. So from Herman Melville, the book he wrote after Moby Dick. So Moby Dick didn't sell anything. So he wrote that book that sold even less. And I think he didn't write any novels anymore, maybe short stories maybe. So that was in the novel, but it's a novel I discovered when I was, like 18, 19 years old. And once again, it was like, thinking, okay, I have a brother, I have a book that's like a brother. So 100 years ago, someone imagined the story that I can, I can feel, I'm related to that story. I'm related to that man who wrote that story. And then I felt, okay, I should probably never make it into a film. And then 15 years later, maybe when I met the actress, I thought I have to make it with her. So I went back.
And sort of what happens in the movie to the character is once he becomes attracted to that world and tries to write a new book, and then he's actually rejected by society for being kind of attracted to this darker world, or this other world, and in a way, I guess that happened to the book, and in some ways the movie as well.
Yeah, because I was talking about bad fathers, but I think the main theme of these first films of mine, because it was always a guy at the center of the film, never a woman or a girl. It was, and I think they're all about immaturity, young people trying to become what you call adults, and who can't in some way or another, who fail. Yeah.
Actually, watching your films again, sort of in preparation for this talk, it occurred to me, I don't know if I should say this, but it occurred to me that you're one of the very few directors out there who knows how to shoot the male phallus in an interesting way. And I'm thinking of the beach scene in The Lovers on the Bridge with the erection on the beach, and there's also the Holy Motors is the very funny sequence with when Merdes kidnapped the model into the cave, and then also in Polar X there's that very kind of dark kind of sex scene, and it kind of changed my mind in terms of thinking how the male body can be shown in the cinema, and I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that. Or
I never had any thoughts about that. I never thought about it. But I realize I film more naked guys than naked women. I think. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, all these. Most of these dicks were fake. They were like, you know. I remember that. But yeah, I don't know.
Because, I mean, do you remember how the beach scene came about? Because it's funny how people's minds, they censor. Because I was thinking about this question, and I was asking, you know, other people on the staff, I was like, do you guys remember that scene on the beach? And they're like, they didn't remember the erection. I was like, oh, but it's very obvious, you know, if you watch it, you know, it's in the silhouette, and it's a big, large dick, by the way. It's very...
Yeah, but I think I remember it was censored. I forgot which, in Asia, some places at the time. Maybe China, maybe Japan, I forgot. No, I don't know when the guy came, you know, on the set, I forgot how it's called, who makes, you know, if you want, he makes stuff.
Oh, the prosthetics guy.
Yeah. And I thought, this is a very big dick, you know, it's, but, so, I decided it was fun, yeah.
So people who don't remember that detail, be sure to look for it if you watch the movie again. Another question I had for you was just about time, because it's sort of one of the subjects of your new film too. And I was wondering what for you changes and what for you stays the same as time passes, because you talk about how the gaze of the camera has changed, or how the politics of resistance has changed, and also how men look at women has changed. But at the same time, there's something that remains the same about all these different subjects. And I love how you keep returning to the River Seine in your movies, and in the section of time and the river. It's a bit like the Heraclitus' paradox. And so I was wondering if you can say something about just what that means to you, change and time, and if there's anything that remains the same. Or...
Well, you know, yeah, the image of the river has been used a lot about time and change. No, there's always a fear that, you know, if there's a worry, there's a fear. It's like pollution, but it's a pollution that's not only the pollution of the planet or the climate, whatever. It's pollution inside us that worries me most. You know, it's like, will we still be able to watch something, to see, to hear, really in the sense of discovering, of paying attention, etc. The pollution of the sounds in the city, like here in Hong Kong or in most cities, pollution, you know, all these images in the city, who needs them? All these signs with all this electricity, you know, who needs all that? It's funny, I was in Japan 10 days ago, and I went in the cemetery where the filmmaker Ozu was buried. And there was sake bottles and etc. And I always thought it was Ozu who talked about that, but I was wrong. It was Bizoguchi who talks about the fact that you have to wash your eyes at times between two experiences. You can't, that's what I'm afraid of, is that we can't wash our eyes anymore, or ears, or whatever. Yeah, there's too much information, and you can't experience, and you lose experience. Is it okay if I go smoke a cigarette? There was supposed to be a break for a cigarette.
Let me see, actually, how are we doing on time? Or it's difficult for me to see here. 10 minutes? Do we have 10 minutes?
Oh, okay.
So we have 10 minutes left. Or
Okay, no break.
so I was trying to be Scheherazade, because they told me that you usually need to take a cigarette break. So I'm trying to make my questions keep you here.
You succeed. I'll just hold one. And
So another question that I had was, I was actually a little bit alarmed when I heard the David Bowie song near the end of It's Not Me, Lazarus. And there's a lot of images. I guess it's from Bad Blood. I'm not sure if you took it from another film, but the black and white image of the swans, and this talk about swan songs. And I was thinking like, oh, I hope he's not saying that this is a swan song from Leos, and because we really need you in your new films. But was there any kind of thinking about some kind of a farewell in terms of using that particular Bowie song or the image of swans? Or
well, this is, I was talking about gratitude towards filmmakers, but there's also gratitude, towards musicians or singers or composers, etc. When it's a singer like David Bowie, let's say, I've been listening to Bowie since I was a kid. So it's amazing, to be able, let's say, if you have a few voices like Bowie in your life, like Nina Simone for me, or Bowie, or, classical music or jazz, or they've been with you your whole life. In a way, you're never alone. So you have to say thank you. That's. And the film was made. This little film was made not so long after Bowie died, and at the same time I was making it, Godard died. So there was that. For sure, it's the end of the people I liked when I was a kid, when I was younger. They're not there anymore. Yeah.
I wanted to ask also about the photographs. I saw in the credits it's by a photographer named Shirus, the nighttime sort of wildlife photography, which I was amazed to learn that those photos were taken from so long ago. They look so contemporary in a way, but it's like the photos of deer at night or in black and white taken with flash. Or I was wondering if there's anything you want to say about those photographs. Or
no, it's just what I was saying about being able to see or to watch. You have to be very patient, this guy, especially at the time, not to go take pictures of animals at night and to hope, you have a whole system. Today it's easy to take pictures at night. It wasn't then. And to hope for beauty, to hope, he got beauty. He got beauty with, so we all also have to thank animals.
So I think that's actually all the time we have for tonight, and so Leos can finally enjoy his cigarette. But we're so grateful for you coming here, and we are looking forward to your next film and hope to see you in Hong Kong again next time.
Thank you, and good night.